This episode is brought to you by ARX. You want to be a successful strength training studio owner. The problem is you aren't able to deliver the safest, most efficient and effective workouts, making it harder for you to attract and retain clients, which makes you feel frustrated. I understand that it can be difficult to differentiate your business without the right tools. ARX's breakthrough adaptive resistance technology uses patented motorized resistance and computer software to give you and your clients the perfect workout every single time. BioFit founder John Zarbok says that ARX is clearly the superior tool to deliver the exercise stimulus. My clients are seeing insane improvements in weeks, not months. I could not fathom running my business without ARX. So here's how you get started. Number one, go to arxfit.com/HOB to get $500 off your ARX machines. Number two, book a call with the ARX sales team. And number three, learn how ARX can help you grow your strength training business. Go to arxfit.com/HOB so you can stop struggling to attract and retain clients and start to grow your strength training business with confidence. Lawrence Neal here, and welcome back to HighIntensityBusiness.com, the podcast where we discuss high-intensity strength training and provide you with the tools and tactics and strategies to help you grow your strength training business. This is episode 349. Today's topic is finding and hiring talent, a very popular topic. Now, the reason I'm really excited about this and why you should be is Luke Carlson, who's a CEO and founder of Discover Strength, reached out to me to introduce me to Brad. Now, Brad is an expert in recruitment, and he'll be talking all about that soon. He's also a new Discover Strength franchisee and doing incredibly well. And this is a problem in terms of finding and hiring talent for our studios. This is a problem that many of us have experienced for a long period of time. And we've got a fantastic solution that we're going to be talking about today, and I can't wait to get into it. Brad has 8 years of recruiting experience. For the last 5, he's pursued passive candidates to help his clients attract talent they would not normally see. Now that he owns a Discover Strength franchise, his interest in recruiting hasn't gone away, but he's found a need for better recruiting practices within resistance exercise. The resistance exercise industry, and he's going to become the frontline support to acquire better trainers to help us all be successful. Brad has a bachelor's degree in communication and fell in love with strength training only 5 years ago. He's done one amateur bodybuilding competition where he competed in classic physique and plans to step back on stage significantly more prepared in 2023. Brad, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you.
Oh, thank you so much, Lawrence.
No, it's my pleasure, and we've been excited to do this for a while now. And I thought we should just start with your background, right? Tell us about your background in recruitment.
Yeah, so little over 8 years ago, I fell into recruitment as more of like a sales job. I had a career in sales kind of coming into this, and just took a shot at like recruiting. I was working for a for-profit college and doing recruitment for them, and it wasn't the kind of recruiting I was really looking for. I was wanted more of the sales aspect versus more of the counselor aspect, and just found a groove with technical recruitment. Things fit into boxes really well when you were looking for a technical employee, like an engineer or a designer of some kind. They had certain components and criteria that they needed. And once I figured that out and I figured out what people wanted, I made the quick connection that, well, I can help. I can make some phone calls. I can find people. I can sort through. I can figure out what's good, what's bad. And then 8 years later, I'm still doing it, but polishing the craft a little bit more with finding people that aren't looking for jobs and selling them on the idea that there's something new and better out there, and uncovering what motivates people to change jobs and become a better employee for somebody else.
Awesome. And, fast forward to 5 years ago, you started doing strength training. Is that for the first time or with Discover Strength? Explain that to me, how you got started.
Well, as a kid growing up in high school, I would train in the weight room early Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings, like super early, just because that was when the janitors were opening up the place, and that's when I could only be there because that was how life went at that time. And then so I've always liked being physically active. I became a runner. ran 7 marathons and done that approach to life. But then once I got a structured routine around personalized strength training is when it all made sense. And my athleticism and interest in fitness, like, found their home kind of thing. And so it's been, it's the only thing I want to do now. So.
Well, so now you've got the bug.
Yeah. We're going to get stronger.
So. Love it. And as I said in the build up to this, I was very excited when Luke emailed me to introduce us because, I've been hearing it for years now that studio owners struggling to find great people. Some of them trying to make the mistake of trying to find like someone who's already interested in, high intensity training and body by science, when really it's about trying to find people who you can then, it's not perhaps the best word to use, but indoctrinate people in that way of thinking, in that particular training method. But needless to say, it's been a challenge for a lot of businesses. And Luke was saying that at Rec, he said attendee after attendee kept saying to you, this is a problem, a huge challenge we have in our business is finding and hiring the right talent, and great talent. And it's probably worth talking about, well, let's talk about Rec. So what was your experience like at Rec in Las Vegas? And what was talk to me about the buzz and the conversations that you were having around this? What were you learning?
Yeah. So it was the first morning we got together on a bus and we went and toured Red Rock, and we did a little hiking trip out there where Luke brought a bunch of people together on the bus. And I had no idea who these people were. I didn't know their status in the industry. I mean, remarkable people, all in their own right, all on the same bus, but I knew nothing about them. I was just the guy who just launched a new franchise. But conversations were just being had about the industry and just people talking to one another on the bus. And all of a sudden I started hearing similar things about, trainers. And someone mentioned something about just recently working to the last 3 months to find a good trainer. And she was sitting right up there on the bus. And I started saying, hey, what do you guys do? And, how'd you find each other? And, it was a long process of all the things that I believe are not the best way to find people. And I'm like, okay, well, great. That worked for you. I wonder if there's opportunities for me to help. Right. So I shared my first experience with the first person on the bus. And then they were so receptive to the idea. I was like, okay, cool. Well, that's something. And then during the Rec conference, people are getting on stage and they're talking about their concerns with recruitment and retention. And then over dinners, people are talking about their concerns with recruitment and retention. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I've solved all these problems for a lot of people over the past 8 years looking into this. They are saying the exact same things that everyone else has been telling me that I've been fixing. And I'm going, okay, well, I look at my wife, Shannon, and I go, you're hearing all these conversations I'm listening to. And she's right there with me and she's seeing my face turn, brain starts working. And she's like, okay, if I wasn't here for this, I wouldn't be in support of watching you make a career shift overnight in Las Vegas. And there was enough people there where I go, okay, well, this is just the first experience. If there's 12 people in this room that I know have a problem, and those are the ones that just made it to this conference, and I know there's hundreds of other gym owners out there who are going through the exact same thing. And no one has ever come up with the solution of passive candidate generation. No one's ever thought, well, let's just start targeting the best people and finding ways to bring the better trainers to our team, not wherever they're currently at. Mm-hmm. So on the flight home, I wrote up my business plan. I put all my numbers together and literally cranked it out on a flight from Las Vegas to home the next morning, quit my job and went all in on it.
But you already had invested in a Discover Strength franchise by that point? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep. We were deep into the construction of the actual studio at that point. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. But you knew that in order to obviously grow that franchise and also take on this new recruitment business that you needed to jump ship in order to make that work.
Yeah. Well, my intention was to continue with technical recruitment while the studio was in operation. And only did I realize that it's going to take more of my time to operate the studio or be a part of the operations of the studio or help with the marketing and my involvements with it, that I wasn't going to have the time to do recruitment for my employer. And he understood and he knew what I was getting into. He's an entrepreneur himself. It had just been him and I for the last 8 years. And so he understands me and everything. And I think it was just, it it was just an easy transition away from that for the most part. But I knew my time couldn't be spent in both spots, but I still didn't want to give up recruiting. So the creation of a recruiting business that can help this industry just also followed suit. I can be under one roof. My brain is on one thing: strength training. How to make strength training better, whether it's in my community or how we're going to support nationally or internationally, even if we need to.
Yeah, and I really like what really turned me on about your approach to all this is you weren't even about the money and creating a business for yourself. You were more like, yeah, DS franchise, that'll pay the bills. This is just something that we all need. This is just something the industry needs. Yep. And I really admire that.
Well, I definitely think it comes full circle. I think if this industry gets more traction and if more studios have trainers like Discover Strength trainers, the ones that I know how to find, like those studios are going to thrive. And then the whole movement takes a big step forward because it's no longer just accepting trainers. We're targeting them now. Mm-hmm. Like we're going to get them.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I've never heard anyone in our industry do it like you do it. And we're obviously going to be talking about the mechanics in depth in a moment. And so stay tuned, everyone, for that, because I think you're going to love this approach and the way it all works. But one thing I've noticed lately is there are some significant hiring challenges at the moment in the US, right? And I'm not sure if this is a global phenomenon with COVID, but I'm assuming it probably is, affecting various countries. So can you give us a view on what the landscape is at the moment? Because I know that it's always been hard for strength training studios to find and keep great talent, but I feel like that's been exacerbated. I've had conversations with various studio owners who are saying to me that it's even harder now to find people. Why is that, do you think?
Well, I mean, one of the first things targeted in a pandemic was, gyms had to close down, which is actually one of the reasons why I wanted to get into the industry in the first place. As a business decision. Like, people are displaced. Not only are the trainers out of the way and all the big stores are laying off and furloughing trainers and they're sacrificing their incomes from this, but all the clients are displaced too. And so even if you have a great trainer, they're coming back to clients that aren't going to actually necessarily be there. People are scared and they're not, it was just one of the big things hit. So its recovery is going to be difficult. And you'll find, trainers who have a sales background or the right personality types, they're going to find themselves into sales positions elsewhere and possibly making more money doing a sales role. Like, I guess maybe one of the struggles with the industry is that personal trainers really aren't compensated to some great degree. So I think the bounce back, people are going to find other ways of making money outside of the industry. And maybe it was just like the time that pushed them out. But the good trainers are the ones who are passionate about it. They're not going to give up on personal training. They're still going to be there. They might be displaced. They might be hiding somewhere, but you find them, bring them back in.
And that's one of your unique abilities, isn't it? You go and speak to that girl or that guy who's a sales director, and you go, "Hey, I know you really want to do personal training, but the reason you're not doing it is because of compensation or X, Y, and Z. How about this opportunity?" Right? And that's the beauty of our particular niche in fitness, is that we can structure it, and the business model enables us to make it lucrative and attractive for candidates. So that's why this is such a great fit. Is there also the thing that, I'm not sure if this is the case in the US, so forgive my ignorance on this, but is there still a lot of government money being handed out as well, and that's causing people to be less motivated to go and find work? So it's like a multifactorial problem, or is that no longer the case?
When it was more of a prevalent thing happening more frequently, I was definitely all over it. I haven't really paid much attention to it. I don't think there is much money being given out anymore, but I definitely know that from an earning potential standpoint, when I was doing technical recruitment still, I could not find people to get a job for less than $20 an hour because they made more money not working with support than they would if they took a job for $20 an hour or less. So that was a really big struggle with technical recruitment. I don't know how that necessarily applied to the fitness industry and where trainers went to. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think I was watching a news report the other day, and it was sort of saying, and I think this was based in America. Yeah, no, it was definitely America. It was saying how there's higher turnover in jobs, and people are. I don't know how I don't know how accurate this data is. It's just one news report, but basically it was saying that there's higher turnover, and people since the pandemic, people have had a bit of an epiphany around, I'd rather do work I enjoy, and life's too short. And, it's
Sure.
kind of perhaps motivating people to pursue things they're more passionate about and prepared to take pay cuts and relocate or what have you, and just be more open to other opportunities. So I think that's happening as well, right? So there's a few factors
Yeah.
here, but that could play into our hands quite nicely because, personal training is so meaningful, right? The work we do is so important. We're literally transforming people's lives. And there's people that are just intrinsically so motivated to do that. And so this is a calling which a lot of people are going to be interested in pursuing now. So
yeah, and kind of just to piggyback off of that data that you've kind of heard about, I heard about similar things too, where like people are like 50% of people in America were like looking for a new job, posting a resume or doing something actively, right? But what they didn't talk about, and there was only rustlings of, was how many people were inactively or passively looking for new opportunities. And I kept record of how many calls I made, how many people I talked to that expressed interest and could see the correlation. And I was over 91% of a success rate of people being entertaining or excited about the idea of even entertaining a conversation with a recruiter about a new career. They were talking to me like it was fish in a barrel. I just had to get someone on the phone and they were like, yeah, no, I want to hear about something new. I don't know where my job's going. I don't know what's happening with all this stuff. I want to know what my options are. Like, it was the most productive last year and a half I've ever seen in recruitment because candidates were accessible.
Wow, makes sense.
Yeah.
So you were already good at this. You're already good at this when it was like harder. And now it's slightly easier, at least for now.
Yeah. Well, it took the sales process away from the candidate side. It took it away. Like I only had to provide them with something that was better in either one or two ways, like compensation or proximity to home or some emotional string that I could tug on that says, hey, listen to this. This is a reason to change. This is better for you for whatever reason. And those emotional strings were out there for just free to grab. Like they were easy to uncover because we had this big event going on. So if there was something that put someone closer to home or allowed them to stay home and do remote work, or if they preferred to be in a location, like to find a place where they could get off the couch at home and come to actual work, like some people need that. But they were too scared to risk anything by throwing their resume out there because, their job security was already kind of questionable, because all these companies are making big decisions and about, how many people they're going to keep on staff. And I mean, it was a perfect time for a recruiter to call. So
yeah, love it. Fascinating stuff. All right. So let's get into the nitty gritty of how your service works. Because I think we've kind of laid down the groundwork in terms of the problems that we're all seeing.
Table set. Let's eat.
Go ahead.
So the table's set. Let's eat.
The table's set. Let's see. Exactly. So how does it work? How does your process work? Yeah.
So the way it's going to play out is if there is a resistance exercise studio that's looking for a personal trainer to come on board. This is in addition to whatever efforts that they're doing on their own. What I'll do is I'll figure out everything I can possibly learn about their business, their compensation plan, their work hours, how clients are generated, who keeps clients, like anything that can pertain to the actual day-to-day balancing of the entire job. I need to know it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look who the competition is, figure out who's nearby, who might have someone in close proximity that can, make a drive from wherever they're currently at to the new location, to the new studio where they might potentially work at. And I'll start shopping within 10, 15 miles of a studio, and then start cold calling them at their job or getting their number in a way that like through social media, like there's Instagram, there's LinkedIn, there's Facebook, and it is 2022 almost, right? Like you can text someone you don't know, like no one cares. So these are the extra steps that I do in terms of going after a passive candidate. I'm not looking for their resume just yet. I'm not looking for their interest online through a Indeed posting or Career Builder or ZipRecruiter or whatever they might post something on. That doesn't pertain to me yet. I'm looking for someone who's been doing the job so I can talk to them and then start qualifying whether or not they fit what we're looking for, and sell them. If I do find something that I like, then sell them on the idea that, hey, there's this new position here. This is the compensation package that they're putting together. This is where it's located. This is why, for these 2 or 3 reasons, it's a better fit for you. Entertaining a conversation at the very least is the first thing you should do. And, then it's up to me and the client to start working together as to how are we actually going to hook this person? What if they got 4 years of experience? They got a book of business built up. How are we going to get them away from there? And have a unified game plan as how we're actually going to land a top tier piece of talent. So,
and this is
general start.
Yeah, that's awesome start. And this is the reality, is that most of our colleagues just don't want to do this. They're not naturally good at sales, or they don't like the rejection. It's not fun, right? Well, it might be fun for people like you, Brad, but for a lot of people, it's not fun, right? They don't want to. So to hire someone like you makes a lot of sense for them. And it's time, right? Time.
The reason why Indeed and ZipRecruiter and Career Builder are a thing is because it's a passive generation of active candidates. It has got no effort involved. You literally shop the resumes, most of them bad, and you shop them and go, okay, well, maybe I'll talk to that person. There's nothing sexy about that. And you're trying to get someone to work for you. Like, that isn't fun from the client or the candidate side coming into a business. So it makes sense. It is the way it is. It's time consuming and it's dry and it doesn't produce results if you're wasting your time doing recruitment when you should be training clients or growing your business or doing things that you're good at that are profitable. Like, you should do those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally agree. And that's another reason why I love this opportunity. And how is it? So how is your approach superior to other approaches? I'm just thinking, a lot of our colleagues might look at job boards and look at Indeed and look at these resources. And why is your approach more effective than that?
Well, it's effective in the way that it's going to bring outreach to people that will never find your job posting or your ad because they're passive candidates. They are just not looking. They don't have an updated resume at the time that I call them. One of the tasks I task these candidates with is to create one so I can see it for the first time. And if that's where these candidates are, you're just not seeing them in any of your efforts. They're just getting up at 5 a.m., going to work, and then going home, hanging out with their families, and then getting up again, going to work. Like, they're just in a rhythm, and it's not looking for a new job. But they get a phone call, they get a text message, they get a message through social media with just a warm introduction and saying, hey, I just want to chat to you about a possible career change or whatever I discover about them when I learn about them online. Then they're willing to oh, sure, I'll chat. It's a recruiter. People talk to recruiters. And that's what's making the biggest difference, is that I'm getting candidates that you're just never going to see.
Yeah. And I know I've said it already, but it's just funny to hear this because I've had so many conversations with people. And I remember talking to Luke, I think on the podcast, saying, is there an agency out there that specializes in finding trainers for strength training studios? And he was like, no, not that I'm aware of. And I think I asked Kyle as well over at The Perfect Work and a bunch of other people, and they're all like, no. And I think the immediate reaction was like, well, certainly for myself, as that is very niche. Would that be something that would be a viable business? And, this discussion has made me realize that it very much is, since there's such a big need for this. But I think this is probably one of the issues. It's like, maybe our colleagues have used generic recruitment agencies in the past, try and find trainers, but because they simply don't understand the business like you do, because you own one, right?
Yeah.
They probably don't qualify the right type of candidate. I mean, the fact that you understand, because, you're a Discover Strength franchisee, but the reality is that all of our colleagues have very, very similar businesses. We're usually using an evidence-based approach. We're normally using high intensity training with 30-minute sessions. We're normally positioned at a premium price, targeting higher income, busy professionals, that kind of thing. So there's so much similarities, and you understand that. So when it comes to providing what our colleagues need in terms of trainers, I just don't think there's a better option out there. So should we get into, I might be skipping over a few things here and we can always track back, but should we just get into the pricing and how it all works? Because I think this is also a big part of why it's very attractive to use someone like you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the pricing model that I came up with, and I've shared this before, and it's going to probably sound weird, is that I'm not looking to make a ton of money doing this. And it's hard to say that and, actually believe it, but it's generally the truth of, like, I just want to find a way to support the industry in itself. I think from where I'm at in life, I was able to do this and not have to make it like my primary source of income. But in terms of the pricing, like there's things that work really, really well with recruitment that are not typical with what people have seen before. Typically, when you call a recruiter, you're going to get pricing that's going to be 25% of the annual salary. That's the fee when the candidate starts the job. Good luck. That's it. And I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's easy for people to comprehend. I think what I've done is made the pricing a flat rate, just a fee. A trainer like this is going to be $5,000 who's got experience doing this. And that fee is going to be a shared risk where we're going to split that fee into two different payments. It's going to be the first half is going to be due when the candidate starts, or 90 days after the candidate starts, if you have like a probationary period, whatever kind of fits for you as a client. And then the next half of the payment would be due 90 days after that. So you get a chance to actually see and experience how the candidate actually works out. And so there's a shared risk. You know what the price is, it's going to make its money back when that candidate becomes an employee and starts working for you. Like, they should make you well more than $5,000 in revenue over the course of a year to compensate for. Yeah, right. So but it saves you the time. All you have to do is pull time aside for the interview process. So, and then in terms of like different positions, and granted, the main concern I have is getting good trainers on board. But like, if you there's like manager roles, we can do this the same structure for a management position. Just the fee is greater. But even to like looking for like franchisees, if your business is growing and you want to grow it and you want someone to buy one, the same process and technique works too. Going after someone who's not going to pay attention. Like, if you didn't know Discover Strength is franchising, you'd have to, maybe jump on their website and then all of a sudden you see it. You just have missed it until now. But if someone shares it with you, then that outreach got you a little bit faster. So.
This episode is brought to you by ARX. These are the most intense exercise machines I've ever used. I remember how fast the pull-down exercise took me to muscular failure and beyond. On the final negative or eccentric excursion, my tank was practically empty, but the adaptive resistance enabled me to continue to perform work until the predetermined end of the set. This experience was very profound and made me realize how effective ARX is in helping clients reach a high level of intensity in their workouts and ultimately produce the best results. I also love how ARX measures and tracks range of motion, rep cadence, total output and time, and more with real-time audio and visual feedback. These features are powerful sales and retention tools to help you convert and keep more clients. As a listener of the High Intensity Business podcast, ARX is offering you $500 off your machines. Just go to arxfit.com/HIB to book a call with the ARX sales team to learn how ARX can revolutionize and grow your fitness business. Again, go to arxfit.com/HIB, and now back to the episode. Love it. And so just to summarize some of that, normally, if we assume that a candidate is making $40,000 a year right, as a personal trainer, which is probably relatively standard in our space if they've got a full schedule, right? Reasonable hours, not crazy burnout hours.
Yep.
25% it would normally be 10,000, right? And you're charging half that, and there's no risk because you're not even asking for the first payment until they've hired the qualified candidate, and then asking for the second payment 90 days later. And I know that you're flexible on those terms and you're happy to talk to owners about that. But I just think that's just very attractive. And I just think that's great that you're setting it up like that. Like when I first obviously heard about you and we were talking, I thought, oh, he's going to charge a ridiculous fee. And is this going to be viable? But then when you described it like that, I thought, no, that makes a lot of sense. And that is something that I think a lot of our colleagues can swallow. Yeah.
Well, and I think the pricing too, like I'm used to engineers, high level engineers are $30,000 a piece. And I'm used to that. But they're, from a business perspective, they're an expense. We already know what they're going to produce. They're doing work. From the sales trainer, like a trainer side of things, like you don't necessarily know what you're going to get with someone. Like there is that turnover. That still is an issue that, the average turnover rate is like 3 months for a trainer. That's a big deal to overcome. And if, like you can't come running into this industry saying you got the magic solution if you still have that hurdle to overcome. So the pricing was definitely considered for exactly where the whole industry is in itself, as just an idea to help. But then also too, having just recently bought a franchise and knowing how much startup costs and how much overhead there is and how much goes on with running a business. Yeah. More than $5,000 is a punch in the gut. Like it's a need that you need to fill, but it's also like there's balances to be met. Like things are expensive, and maybe this is one of those scenarios where it definitely doesn't have to be. Yeah. I guess.
Yeah. And just remind me, I'm just trying to understand what the demarcation is. So you'll contact the candidate. You'll speak to the strength training studio owner, manager, understand their business inside and out, understand the opportunity, working hours, the benefits, core growth plan, compensation, etc., so that you can then be armed when you speak to passive candidates. So then are you looking to just contact as many as possible? Will you try and get 5 or 10 or how does that work? And then walk us through what happens in terms of the interview process, how involved you are and all of that side of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is kind of where it gets fun, is that there is a partnership that is built, and maybe an easier partnership now that I'm, directly related in the industry, having a studio, but to understand how your business operates, like a client of mine, it requires doing a deep dive as to how they're doing it, and understanding what their compensations are, their benefits package. Like I need all that information in writing in front of me, because when I go to talk to somebody about their job opportunity, I'm trying to sell the entire company, core values and all, like talking about who their manager will be and what makes their manager unique. Like every little thing I can find out about a company gets shared, because that is something that has not been brought to a passive candidate's attention in any way, shape, or form. And if I know what I'm talking about, I can actually sell it. The process is rather smooth in terms of what I do on the front end, and even during the entire interview process, that alleviates much of the hassle of when you can possibly lose a potential hire. Everyone's had someone decline an offer before. Well, what if you knew that you should have never offered that job to that person 3 weeks ago and you wasted all your time? What if you had a recruiter on the back end that said, hey, right before that offer is going to be created, don't waste your time making that offer. They're not going to take it, because there's back channel communication going on between the recruiter and the candidate that the candidate doesn't know about, that can help make sure that everyone involved in this whole situation is still progressing forward. So that's just some of the stuff that can happen later on. But in the beginning, when I get a candidate, it's a screening process. And once I know about the client, the screening process, goes through and says, okay, well, if they fit 80% of what we're looking for here, that to me says, let's talk more. Let's push things into a meeting with my client and seeing if there's enough there to generate some interest, and laying out and sharing what the benefits of this potential candidate are, and also sharing the concerns that I have with them. Like what if it's compensation? What if they are going to be $5,000 outside of the realm of where you think you're going to get? We need to find a way to create $5,000 in value to offset some things. And maybe it's a change of comp plan. Sure, that's never fun, but maybe that's the way you have to do it. Or maybe it's scheduling.
Especially if it's a recurring problem, right?
Yeah. Yep. So there's opportunities to make adjustments to your business model if you decide to. There's opportunities to find workarounds that might be able to attract or retain someone. There's more reasons than just compensation to change jobs, and it's finding out like how to best balance that stuff out. When you have a candidate that's willing to share, hey, I don't like the hours that I'm working. If I could find something that was, these hours instead, maybe that's the reason why they changed jobs. You never know that unless you were talking to them. So all the information that I get from talking to the candidate comes in a candidate profile that I give my client, saying, hey, here's the conversation I had. We talked about all these things. Here's why I think they're a fit. Here's why they're credible. Here's why their credentials are solid. Here's my concerns. Here's their availability to interview. I'm going to call you about an hour from now to talk about this in more detail, or schedule a call. I'm typically pretty persistent, so I'll just tell them I'm going to call them right away. And then we'll talk about the candidate like that same day. And then the next thing I'll do is, if we're going to be scheduling an interview, booking it. And the interview process will take significantly less time because there's going to be a middleman coordinating with the candidate, with the client. All they got to do is both sides just have to show up to the interview. And then throughout the whole process, everything that I uncover from both the candidate side gets shared with the client. That's something that they need to know, especially if it's a reason not to hire the candidate. The client might love the candidate. If I find out that client only wants to, or that candidate only wants to do kettlebell swings and not, resistance exercise all of a sudden, well, sorry, guess who's stopping everything? I'm calling up my client saying, hey, look, we're done with this guy. We're moving on. I closed him out. Sorry for wasting the time of yours that we did. We're not going to waste any more of it.
Yeah. Controversial statement, but if you're out there and you do kettlebell swings, I think Brad would still talk to you. Or am I wrong about that? Or would you rather not go anywhere near kettlebell swings?
I would absolutely still talk to you. But if you told me that is your life passion and my client doesn't do anything with kettlebells, I'm sorry. But unless you convince me that you've seen something different and want to get rid of your entire life's work in kettlebell swings, okay, good luck.
Yeah, I actually had a conversation with someone very well known and respected in high intensity training who does love to do kettlebell swings occasionally, and I thought that's quite funny because they actually understand that there's risks involved and they're not as productive and so on and so forth. But I don't know. I think we can all be a little bit too dogmatic sometimes with some of this stuff. But no, I won't obviously reveal who that is because they'll be attacked probably, which happens sometimes. All right. So that was really helpful. So you're not involved in the interviews themselves. You're leaving that to the employer, right?
No, yeah. So the interview process is like the client still has their interview process that they should do. And if they need help with that, to try to getting it down to 2, at the most 3 interviews is what I would say is that threshold where you're maybe pushing a client or pushing a candidate maybe a little too hard in the duration of how much work it's put in, because they've already spent an hour and a half at this point throughout the interview process, that whole period of time with me. There's 30 to 45 minutes for the initial interview. There's like a pre-interview phone call, making sure that all their ducks in a row and they're not going to go in there unprepared. And then there's a post follow-up interview call with me every time they finish an interview to digest what happened, how they're feeling about things. So there's a lot of time that goes into making sure that candidate is nurtured in the very beginning, not necessarily say groomed, but comfortable with the interview process they're about to get into, and then, consulted after each time again. So like there's a lot going on with the candidate throughout the whole process. So that's why I think if we can get the interview process down to like a 2-week time frame at the most, that's going to show a passive candidate from a business standpoint that you are interested in them thoroughly. And we can uncover everything in 2 weeks. But if they're pursued, if they're lured in, if they're chased, like people feel really, really good about that, especially when they're trying to like decide if they're going to be leaving their current job. They need to feel welcome to wherever they're going to go.
And wanted. Yeah, absolutely. And just to clarify then, so studio owners aren't paying anything until that candidate's appointed, even if you spent 30 hours trying, not that you'd take that long, getting a trainer all the way to the end for one party to decline.
Yep. Yeah. There's no money that I take throughout the entire interview process. It's just the candidate has to start. That's where my carrot comes.
Yeah. Wow. No, that's great. I mean, you're obviously very confident in your ability, and your track record speaks for itself. So that you're happy to take on that risk.
Yeah. If I hadn't been doing it like this for, the last 5 years directly, and understanding that phrase, you eat what you kill kind of thing. It's in sales kind of thing. It's just, when you have a good service that you provide, and if you can provide what you're talking about, like you can live by it, like I can live by it. So,
and I suppose for you as well, it's like, not to say that you haven't always believed in the product and service provided by your clients in your recruitment background. So, right, because you're representing lots of businesses in your past, right? And then you would find candidates for them. But I suppose sometimes you might come across a business where you're like, I don't really think your product's that great or your culture's that great, and I'm not feeling this. Whereas with our space, it's like, you're delivering a candidate into a business which is delivering so much value, and like you said, you're going to be understandably judicious about who you work with, and you're probably not going to want to work with a fitness business who are doing completely stupid fad-based stuff, right? Or you're less inclined. So knowing that you're working with businesses that are just providing a huge amount of value gives you so much more belief, meaning it's an even easier sell for you, right? Is that a fair point?
Yeah, it's definitely more relatable. When I was putting together my business model of who's my ideal client, it's they have to be like at least 50% doing resistance exercise in the capacity that I'm familiar with through Discover Strength. So it really is like the supporting of that evidence-based exercise movement is what I'm trying to bring credit to. So those are the companies that are going to get this support, and those not in line with that modality are going to be targeted. So I think with that also being said, I think when trying to identify the right kind of client, you can't always, please everyone. There's some clients you can't work with, and those are tough decisions I have to make if I can't work for a client, if I don't think I'm going to be successful helping them, for a multitude of reasons. Maybe they can't change their comp plan and their comp plan is bad, and you can't win that battle. Maybe you have the worst comp plan of all your competitors. I'm sorry, I can't probably help you right there. Or, maybe it's bad equipment, or maybe it's bad management, or like if some of these things start getting in the way, or some of the worst parts is like, you don't partner with me. You don't let me be good at what I'm good at. You try to tell me how to do recruitment that fits under your ways of doing things in the past that ultimately haven't worked, because that's why we're having conversations now. And not let my expertise in qualifying candidates and sharing information and my gut feel and judgment mean a little bit more in the whole process. So there's some things that can get in the way of like a good relationship between me and a potential client, but honestly, they're rare.
Yeah. And just thinking of all the people I know in our space, and so many of them that I've become good friends with, are so coachable and would be happy to say, no, Brad, you do your thing, because I have no idea about this. And this is your unique ability. I'll focus on my unique ability. You do yours, and I'm not going to tell you how to do it. So that's kind of the reaction I think a lot of people will have. And hopefully listeners are getting as excited as I am about this conversation, because you've just created a new category with this service, and I'm just excited to see where it goes. Just a question I had about comp plan. Now, I think I remember having a conversation with Luke about, compensation is important, but it's not everything. Can you just talk a little bit about that, about, the reasons why people move jobs? I think you've said before about how proximity to home is actually right up there, and how people make decisions about this stuff.
Yeah. So everyone thinks that compensation is the primary motivator, and I found it not to be completely true. It's not always the case. It's important. You can't get away from a deal like this going through without having the way of, making sure someone's living is appropriate. But it's other things have gone into the equation, like location. And at first I thought location meant, well, how far away is their job? Maybe that's all that matters, is their drive time, their distances. And that's not close. That's not even close to true at all. It's got nothing to do with it. It's the proximity to home, and that how far away are they from who matters to them plays a bigger role than just how far their drive time is in the morning. So if their kids go to school nearby, that's a big deal, because then they're close from their job to where their kids are in the event that there's an emergency or something happens. The flexibility or freedom to be able to be within a close proximity to their family. Like if something happens at work and they need to cut out half of their day, can they get from wherever they're at to whatever they need to be at? And do they have the freedom to do something like that? That's important with people just as much as compensation, for what I've seen now. But then reasons for leaving a job, those two are important, the compensation and proximity to home. But then there's also like some other emotional trigger that is going on. Maybe they don't like their hours, or maybe they're just not in the right job and they don't know it yet. Like maybe they're doing some spin class or something and they're meant for personal strength training, and they're not getting that feature. And we don't know that until you start talking to them and uncovering like what their interests and values are. So there's a bunch of little things that go into it, not just, oh, hey, I'm employed, I'm unemployed, looking for work, I'm not looking for work. Like it's a little bit different.
It makes me think of how important things like EOS are for businesses in terms of having core values. I know you're familiar with EOS. I think That's right, Brad, isn't it? Yep. Having core values, having clear objectives, having clear accountability, having clear kind of lines of reporting. Like, that stuff is still so rare in businesses that when you have it and you have something like EOS implemented, it's so attractive, right, to a candidate. Yep. It's like, oh, hang on, like their values are they actually have core values and they actually like live and breathe them and they're aligned with my own. And oh my God, there's like a whole growth plan. And oh my God, there's actual objectives that the business has that trickle down to each member, and we're all kept accountable. Like high performers want that, right? They want that. They want to be coached. They want to be challenged. And so, yeah, I think when you combine that with someone like you, that could be powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the most exciting things that I've come across when getting a studio off the ground is that I have a structured game plan that was given to me, and how good that felt from my own buy-in standpoint. Like, do I want to step into this industry? And well, I have a plan. I've been given a plan. I love it. And when I share that with the people that I've hired, they love it. Like it means something to them to know what they're responsible for. We were just getting started on what our quarterly goals are going to be coming up for 2022 with my team. And we just started, like literally the conversation was yesterday, and putting together what people are responsible for. And they know. Now they're like, oh, okay, that's what I'm going to be doing. I think that matters a lot. So yeah, if you have some structure and some organization in your fitness industry or in your fitness studio, typically falling in line with the resistance exercise that we're doing, it's easy to kind of piggyback some of the ideas that are already being created by companies like Discover Strength, and like putting those things in motion where you can sell the idea of, this is what makes us unique. This is what our mission is to do. Like this is what we all agree with. And you share that with somebody for the first time in that first phone call, in that first 30, 45 minutes that I get with them, and I sound really passionate about it, they can't help but not want to just explore a little bit more. So yeah, if you have a little bit of organization that way, you can attract some really, really good people to hear you.
Yeah, and you've obviously you've really hit the ground running with your Discover Strength franchise. It's incredible. 19 out of 20 conversions in week 1 from free workouts. Yeah. Is that So me and Brad will probably be talking more about that in the future, because I think we're running a little bit low on time here. But I did want to ask, in terms of your trainers, at your location. You've got a couple of trainers, right? One or two or more. So
Yeah,
did you use your own skills to go about acquiring them, or how did that come about?
I did. Yeah. The recruiting for me was effortless. I put maybe 3.5, 4 hours of my time into the actual procurement of the candidates that I wanted to talk to. And from that amount of effort, I've hired two that were directly from that. And then they're starting in different times. So I was able to get one to start from, right when I opened. And then my next hire, she starts March 1st. So yeah, I was able to find two really, really, really good people. Like they're good people. And I'm excited to see what they can do. And then I had a general manager already kind of lined up for my studio that came from Discover Strength. So that was really kind of convenient to have that kind of support right off the get-go. But yeah, it worked for me. I turned away about 6 other candidates that one of which I'm going to circle back to probably in June, depending on how things continue to grow. But yeah, there was enough candidates to talk to who had already careers in the fitness industry in some capacity. So yeah, it worked for me.
Love it. Proof is in the pudding. And I will just say, well, actually, before I get to that, I'd love to hear what the vision is for the recruitment business. What's the official name at this stage? Sorry, just so we have a signpost for it.
Yeah, so it's Standguard Fitness LLC is the entity that my wife and I created, and then that's going to be what's going to be used for the recruitment side of things. So it's going to look like a fitness studio, essentially, like a fitness business.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's early days. It's absolutely fine, isn't it? And we'll make sure we put all of your contact details in the blog post of this, and I'll ask you to actually shout those out at the end. But before we get there, what's your vision for this business? Are you looking to build a little team, or because I guess one of the concerns some of the listeners might have is, geez, this is amazing, but Brad's going to be inundated with inquiries. How is he possibly going to recruit for me? So are you going to look to scale this in any way, or is that, have you got so much capacity that actually they shouldn't be perhaps concerned about that?
Yeah. And a lot of thought has actually gone into that. And the truth of it is it can scale, but the biggest selling point, I think, is that in recruitment, I'm a workhorse. Like the idea of extra hours and finding time and creating almost something out of nothing is what I've built my entire recruiting career off of. So like for me, I can probably handle 20 clients. And my thought would be a client for me would probably make 1 to 2 hires per year would be the amount of resources they allocate to my business. So for me, that's a placement a week when I get kind of cruising along. That to me is pretty doable. Knowing how this whole process works with the recruitment side, I'm pretty efficient at what I do. When it came to engineers, my turnaround time was within 7 days of you kicking me off on a project for a really complex engineer role. I had 3 candidates put together in 7 days. I think it'll take me less than 2 or 3 days to produce the same thing within the fitness industry, only because it's pretty much untapped, this style. So reaching out to people, they've never been targeted before. They've never been looked at as a commodity to go be pursued. So I think the results will be a little bit faster. So for now, I think from what I expect and can handle for the next couple of years, probably just let's find 20 clients, 20 people that want to use this once or twice a year, and let that go. And then if I can find, if it needs to grow and scale, like if there's more people that really see this value and demand for it, like, sure. I know people that can help me with the recruitment process that are just as talented in the recruitment space. They just need to be brought into resistance exercise.
So you need to recruit them, basically.
Yeah.
I love it.
But,
yeah, I mean, look, for those listening, there is going to be a ton of interest in this. I know a lot of other advocates for Brad who are promoting what he does. And so if you're interested, I encourage you to get in touch with him as soon as possible to get the ball rolling, to take advantage of that. So anything else, Brad, in terms of the service we haven't talked about that you think might be interesting to the listeners? Anything that comes to mind, or anything you want to talk about as it pertains to like helping the listeners find great trainers? Because, not everyone's going to work with you. Maybe they can't. Maybe they haven't got the budget. Maybe whatever. There's a reason I can't think of. So anything else you want to share on that?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like the business side of things, I think I've explained enough about what I'm looking to do. But if I can just like share something that has been maybe a glimpse at what the secret sauce is for recruitment in 2021 and 2020, it was slowing down and actually pursuing people with, you had to share the message that you were interested in them. If you were not looking for someone like through your job board postings or your ads, and you're not responding within the day that they send your resume, if you're not giving them a phone call and leaving them a voicemail saying, hey, I saw you applied to my job. I'm interested in having you work for me. Not just saying I'm interested in interviewing you. I'm interested in having you work for me, and set the groundwork that you are wanting to consider them for the job. That's going to go a long way in terms of how they feel of them being pursued. Your response times need to be improved. You can't go multiple days because your competition might be moving faster. And if they're posting on your ad, they're posting on others. So a quicker turnaround time and conveying your interest in them potentially working for you, and actually just being straight open and sharing it. Like, I'm interested in you working for me. I want to start some conversations. Going that route has been really, really helpful for me in getting people to know that I'm serious. And if you're serious, I think you should be genuine, saying, hey, I need your help. I need to talk to you about whether or not it's a good fit for both of us. And just communicate that more, that, you're the one in need, right? You need an employee. They happen to be needing a job, but you're the one it's more important that you find an employee than worrying about them finding a job. So
yeah, absolutely. And we could have obviously front loaded this whole podcast with that, and I deliberately didn't. And the reason for that is, frankly, no one has the inclination or time to do that, right? People are busy training clients, managing their business, managing their operation, doing their marketing, wearing lots of hats. So I did make this podcast pretty much an advertorial, right? If you want to call it that. Like, it's just a sales pitch, really, to say, contact Brad, use Brad for this particular problem in your business, because I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to sit here and, you gave some great advice there on how people can go about this themselves tactically and how they can have more success. But I just think that most will be better off just hiring you, to be completely honest. Brad, thanks so much for doing this. This has been a lot of fun, and I'm just really pleased we got into all of the nitty gritty of all of what you're offering here.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm really excited for this. I hope we can help some companies do some really good things in 2022 and 2023, and for the next 25 plus years. And cranking out this.
And what's the best way people to get in touch with you about this?
So, honestly, email is great. We can put some email addresses on there. Otherwise, call me. Like, that's the best way to do it, is just to call me. My phone's always on. Or otherwise through LinkedIn, getting connected with me there. You can see a lot of what I've done with the referrals people have given me through LinkedIn. You can get a glimpse of the kind of recruiter that I am through my LinkedIn profile. I'd say that would be the best way to do it. There's no point in a website for me. You just got to call me, let me know what you need, and I'll get to work.
Love it. And there's no obviously better recommendation than the High Intensity Business Podcast. No, I was going to say then Luke Carlson, right? To have Luke be shouting about you from the rooftops is awesome, and very good recognition. Now, obviously, we'll put all of that in the show notes, but just in case people don't access the show notes and they just want to hear those details now, can you just give us the best email, phone, and your LinkedIn right now, so we can just have that on the podcast?
Yeah. So you can send an email to Brad at StangaardFitness.com. That's STANGAARD fitness.com. My phone number would be 651-270-5060. And either one of those, you'll get a hold of me really quick.
And do you work globally? So someone's in Europe is interested. Would you entertain stuff outside of the US right now?
I would 100% entertain it. I don't know how it necessarily works because I've never done that, but I know I probably could. so
that's 001 if you're on the front of that number if you're calling from outside the US.
Yep.
Awesome. Yep. And LinkedIn is just your full name, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So how do you want to spell that out just for listeners?
Yep. So it'd be, linkedin.com/Brad Stanke. So it's BRADSTANKE.
Cool. Perfect. Thank you for that. Sorry, that was a little bit tedious, but I just think it's important for people that might be walking and want to write it down or can't be bothered to open a browser up to look at the show notes, which, I don't blame people. We're all pretty lazy these days and we want efficient solutions to everything. Again, thanks so much for doing this. I'm really excited about this, and we'll no doubt be using you ourselves at some point as well. For everyone listening, to find the blog post for this episode, please go to highintensitybusiness.com, search for episode 349, and until next time, thank you very much for listening. This episode is brought to you by ARX. You want to be a successful strength training studio owner. The problem is you aren't able to deliver the safest, most efficient and effective workouts, making it harder for you to attract and retain clients, which makes you feel frustrated. I understand that it can be difficult to differentiate your business without the right tools. ARX's breakthrough adaptive resistance technology uses patented motorized resistance and computer software to give you and your clients the perfect workout every single time. BioFit founder John Zarbok says that ARX is clearly the superior tool to deliver the exercise stimulus. My clients are seeing insane improvements in weeks, not months. I could not fathom running my business without ARX. So here's how you get started. Number 1, go to arxfit.com/HOB to get $500 off your ARX machines. Number 2, book a call with the ARX sales team. And number 3, learn how ARX can help you grow your strength training business. Go to arxfit.com/HOB so you can stop struggling to attract and retain clients and start to grow your strength training business with confidence.